So I guess just on the vid alone, it's a bit of a dead giveaway who I'm speaking to this afternoon, right? So I want to welcome back everybody to the 11th Truelogic DX conversation where we bring real life experiences with digital into practical and actionable conversations for you guys. Some of you have been with us on this journey for the past year, a little over a year, and I'm really, really grateful for the time you put into it. I hope that we reciprocate that by giving you relevant conversations with digital and business experts and leaders whose experiences might benefit you and your brand in the daily goings of what you do in terms of how you impact the business, how you impact the brand, and whatnot. But today's conversation is about the many crossroads that businesses and brands encounter as they go through their digital journey, right? Like, take for example, uh, to do digital, traditional, or both. How much of each, right? In-house versus vendor, channel versus captive, partnership versus proprietary. These are some of the questions that our guest this afternoon is going to talk to us about in this installment of Truelogic DX. Before I do so, same rules as always. You get out of the experience as much as you put in. So I don't just encourage you to listen, but I encourage you to join us in the conversation. So without further ado, and to get the conversation started, I would like to introduce our guest. Full disclosure, he's a client. Please join me in welcoming the brand manager of Ardent World, more commonly known to almost everybody as Moringa-O2 and Gluta-C. Please help me welcome Mr. Nico Share.
Hello everyone. Good afternoon to everyone, and it's a pleasure to be here with you, Burns.
Yeah, thanks for joining us, Nico. I know you'd attended some of the previous ones, so I think you sort of knew what to
Yes,
expect naman on the flow of the conversation, right?
yeah,
So,
I've actually joined siguro 80% of the DX
wow.
series.
See, so you're one of the people that I'm thanking, like in that intro. Before we get started, and to help people get a bit of context, why don't you tell us about Ardent World, and then take for example why you guys decided to venture into the personal care space.
Yeah. So Ardent World Inc. is a part of a group of companies.
Mm-hmm.
So our sister companies are Marie France Facial Care and Svensson. So
Mm-hmm.
those were the companies that uh, somehow introduced us to the beauty, personal care, skincare,
Mm-hmm.
and hair care industry. So that's how we started. And we started off with our whitening brand before Gluta-C. It
Mm-hmm.
was named Duo for glutathione and
Okay.
vitamin C. And then in 2009, we renamed it to Gluta-C to highlight glutathione and vitamin C.
Mm-hmm.
And then in the around 2011, 2012, that's when we started Moringa-O2, which was our herbal skincare line at that time, which consisted of malunggay, which is moringa, olive oil,
Right.
and omega from sunflower oil.
Mm-hmm.
So if you notice, both of our brands have the same naming convention. So
Yeah.
yeah,
So, but why FMCG? No, like if I was an emerging business in the early 2000s, I might not necessarily have jumped into that space because I mean you will automatically play with some of the biggest players like Unilever, P&G,
yes.
right? So why skincare, why self-care products
It was
in that FMCG space?
it was primarily a interest of the family. So
Mm,
because we come from the beauty industry, so we thought uh, Marie France Facial Care and Svensson are more premium kasi. So in order
right.
to be able to provide for those who are not yet ready for that kind of service, we are starting with
Okay.
these
Yeah, that makes
mass
sense.
branded products.
Right, right. And it is
Yeah,
a
that's
tangible,
why
it's related.
it's part of our philosophy to be able to provide premium skincare and hair care products at
Mhm.
reasonable prices.
Hmm. And then, of course, being in the FMCG space, your digital journey would have been very different from would have been different from your sister brands, I would say
Yes.
even very different from a lot of the clients that we work with.
Yeah.
Probably a bit more complex.
Yes.
Uh, so what did you guys find to be the early challenges of going digital, given that you are in the fast moving consumer goods space?
Yeah. Being in the FMCG industry, the biggest challenge to actually survive in this industry is that you have to find your own way in such that you don't go head on with the multinationals.
Mm-hmm.
So at an early stage, you don't want to be under their radar right away because
Yeah, no, that's true.
yeah.
That's
So
true.
you have to make small and silent steps.
Mm-hmm.
And in the early 2010s, that was the digitalization path.
Mm-hmm.
So we started quite early into the digitalization
Yeah,
process.
way before the relationship with
Yeah,
Truelogic, right?
so we put up our pages. Our Gluta-C page was put up in 2011, actually,
Mm-hmm.
November 2011. So it's been 10 years since the page was launched. And we put up the Moringa page right after the brand was launched.
Mm-hmm.
So we've
But
been
of
on
course,
Facebook for a couple of
in
years
the
now.
early days, naturally you would have relied more on traditional brand activation, more on events, no, then you guys would have leaned on digital. I think the leaning on
Yes.
digital is I guess sort of like a byproduct of the pandemic, but also I guess as an adaptation to changing customer behaviors, right?
Yes.
Uh so practical question, like if you guys didn't have a sister brand to prototype and learn from, uh, how would you guys have gone about doing your research in terms of getting started on digital and knowing that you were headed in the right direction?
Actually, we started with digital before our sister brand
Oh, see,
because
even then.
we
Uh-huh.
were more experimental.
Yeah. Because it's smaller,
Because
nimbler brand, right?
yes, smaller, nimbler brand. We had to be noticed, and we
Mm-hmm.
couldn't go through the traditional media to be noticed because
Right,
they're already flooded with the big corporations, big
right.
brands.
And when you
So
guys started off, was it all in-house? All capability was in-house?
yeah, because we started small also.
Mm-hmm.
So during at that time, most of our investments were in traditional, but we set aside a budget that we can
Mm-hmm.
experiment and somehow gamble on. And
Right,
that's what we use for digital.
right. And I'm actually going to jump into that again later in the conversation. No? Like, take for example, what decision-making criteria did you guys go through to determine, oh, sige, it's time to not do this in-house. It's time to send it outside. No, I
Yeah.
think a lot of brands encounter that point in their journey where they're wondering, okay, is it still worthwhile to do this ourselves, or is it more worthwhile
Yes.
to send it outside?
Yeah.
Uh,
Uh, yeah.
so for you guys and on a lot of conversations even here, no, there have been people we spoke to who either transitioned to digital just in time, or
Yes.
people that discovered they had to pivot their brands in order to adapt to the lockdowns, in order to adapt to the pandemic. Where do you guys fall in that spectrum? Like, where are you guys more of the, oh no, we digitized a bit early,
Yeah.
so we were in a good position in the pandemic, or were you guys like, oh no, lockdown tayo, let's
Yeah.
let's pivot?
In our company, our practice is that we adapt early,
Mm-hmm.
but we don't go full force right away.
Mm-hmm. Right,
So we want to be present and ready para when the time comes where people or the consumer shift to that platform, we're already there and set up,
right.
and we are ready to put in our investment to scale. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
but we wouldn't want to go all out on a particular platform that hasn't been tested yet because
Right, right,
it's going to be a huge gamble on our part.
right, right. And I think it's smart to hedge your bets, right? I'm a
Yeah.
fan of be where your customers are. And prior to the lockdown, I don't think there would have been any reason to not be in at location in places
Yes.
because people were allowed to be there. How did you guys have to go through any radical changes during the lockdowns or not really naman? You found yourselves and oh, buti na lang, we're at step 4 na. So we just need to
Yeah.
take two more baby steps. Where did you guys find yourselves in that spectrum?
Yeah. Actually, in this field, it's ano it always catches you off guard. So even though we thought we were prepared with our Shopee and Lazada stores, for example, on
Mhm.
the fulfillment side, we were caught off guard because of the restrictions in logistics, in movements.
Right.
So, and of course, because people couldn't go out to the stores and buy, all the orders went in our online store, and it was
Yeah.
a challenge to serve and fulfill.
In the
So
current in the current situation, Nico, like with the current state lockdowns easing a bit, not yet fully eased now, pero let's say with the lockdowns easing a bit, with your inventory movement in the real
yes,
world going back to normal, are you finding the are you guys finding as your digital increases, your real world inventory decreases, like do they cannibalize off of each other? Or are you finding hindi, nung nag-open yung traditional channels for purchase, our digital volumes remain the same,
yeah,
and vice versa?
yeah. Actually, pre-pandemic, there are separate markets for online
Mhm.
shoppers and offline shoppers. Uh, Probably because of our industry as well, because we are in personal care, skincare, and people
Mhm.
would like to have some sort of experience, or
Right.
at least be able to check out the products. Like if they go to Watson's, they're able to see different,
Right.
wide range of products and brands to check out. But then when the pandemic came, it left people no option but to shop
Yeah.
online because
Right.
yeah, so branches were shut down and the movement was restricted.
Restricted. Yeah.
So we really felt as a shift from offline to online.
Mhm.
And now that restrictions are easing up, we are also noticing, although the shift back to offline is not as big as the shift from offline to online
Mhm.
during the start of the pandemic, we can still notice it.
Mhm.
So, like this month in October, we are already feeling that online sales are slowly going back to offline, or at least a portion of it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And so let's talk about how you guys got started on the journey since you guys started pretty early, no? And
Yeah.
one of the things that you mentioned was yes, experiment, but don't throw your eggs all in one basket.
Yes.
Uh, but so when do you guys decide? Is it standard practice for you guys to try a capability in with a captive team first and then find a
Yes.
vendor that can mimic that team? Yun yung usual
Yes.
na approach.
Yes. Normally, when we try out a platform, uh, we adopt early because it's usually free. So
Mhm.
there are not much costs involved. And it's our chance to understand and get to know the platform, how it works,
Mhm.
and how we can incorporate it into our existing operations, because of course we have limited resources in our
Right.
company as well, so we have to make sure that it doesn't disrupt our existing processes.
Right. Or at least it doesn't disrupt
Yes.
the core of what you're good
Yeah,
at, right?
so once we are able to test out the procedures involved in the activity
Mhm.
or in the venture, uh, we we operate it until the point comes wherein the scale is too big for us to handle internally,
Mhm.
because
Okay.
that would require us to build a dedicated team just to
Right.
handle that
Right. Okay, so I'm
activity.
getting it, no?
Yeah.
Kasi one of my biggest curiosities was what's the decision-making criteria for
Yeah.
knowing when to send work out. And I think you answered that, no, that when the work requirement, when the volume, when the mass is
Yes.
already more than what your captive team can
Yes.
manage.
Yes.
It's time to send it
Yes.
out.
Yes.
Okay,
Because there
what
is
about picking the
going to
people
be,
that will do it for you?
yeah.
How about selecting the people that will do it for you?
Uh,
Do
in
they have
selecting
to
the
be better than
people,
your team? Like
yes,
any
of course,
expectation?
they have to give us the confidence that they're going to do it better than our existing team and
Mm-hmm.
better than the team that we will be able to form if we decide to form one.
Right, right,
So otherwise, it's not ano eh. It's not
right.
gonna work
No,
out because it's
yeah,
they're not going to meet the expectations.
right.
So
And they really have to add on. They have to be an
yes,
asset to the way you guys
yeah,
run the business.
yes.
It,
And in our company, uh, we're trying to focus on our core. So we want
mhm.
to dedicate all our time and effort on things that only us can do,
Right,
because if it's something that can be done by a third party or a partner, for example, and their expertise is really in that field, then we're better off just
right.
getting their help.
Yeah, yeah. In a way, that's like Jim Collins' hedgehog concept, right?
Yeah.
Na you stick to what you're good at and don't you let yourself be distracted and don't let your time be consumed by the adjunct activities that are tied to running a business. That makes a lot of sense. Are there top one, two, three qualities you look for? Like when you guys are making a selection for oh sige, who gets to work with Ardent, who will represent Moringa digitally, who will represent Gluta-C digitally.
Yeah.
Are there specific characteristics for vendors? And then meron ka bang mga hard line? Like are there deal breakers for you na kapag may ganito, red flag, no go.
Yeah. Uh, our number one priority is transparency and honesty. So we want
Mm-hmm.
to work with a partner who is very open, whether the report is going to be good or bad. We want to know the
Mm-hmm.
truth, di ba?
Right,
Kasi
right,
otherwise, we won't be able to help each other. So
right.
we don't expect the partner to do everything for us, because we know,
Mm-hmm.
even if we're working with a third party agency or third party partner, there are still some roles that we will have to fill in by
Right,
our team. Yeah.
right.
And of course, we will look at the competence of the agency. So they
Pero
have
so
to,
that I want to jump into, no? How do you guys do that? So given that the core is let's say skincare, personal care, how do you develop the expertise to gauge whether kasi I don't think there is an agency you can walk to out there that will tell you na hindi medyo marunong lang kami diyan. We're not really expert. I think
yes,
everybody
yes,
will say they're experts.
yes,
So
yes,
how do you how do you figure out who's giving you the real score and who's not?
yes. Here, the peer reviews and yeah, feedback
Mhm.
from colleagues, from friends, from
Mhm.
other players in the industry.
Right.
And of course, uh, because we normally test out the different platforms
Mhm.
ourselves, we have like the basic ideas of how they work.
Right. Right.
So we are able to see if what the partner is saying
Makes
is
sense or not.
matching,
Right.
yeah,
Right.
matching with what we know. And if they
Okay.
don't, we try to ask and figure out if what they're saying makes sense.
Right. Oh
Yeah.
no, and then that's great, right? I think that's great na you I think when you say let's ask, you mean tapping other people in your personal networks, people that you know
Yes.
that might know. And I think not a lot of brands do that enough. No, I think
Yes.
one of the things that will come out in the conversation, some of the things that help you guys become successful is to a degree knowing people, right? Like knowing the right people in the
Yeah.
right places, and it can help move stuff along.
Yeah.
I'll move on to another channel discussion and another decision making criteria that you guys went through, because aside from working with Truelogic, you guys also have online marketplace channel partners
Yes.
like Lazada and Shopee, like you mentioned, right?
Yes.
So how about that? Like, why go channel partnerships versus building your own captive e-commerce capabilities?
It will depend on the budget that you are willing to invest.
Mm-hmm.
Kasi if you try to build your own selling platform, then you will have to invest in one, the infrastructure,
Right,
and second, the traffic. So it's very hard to gain traffic now. And if
right,
you go into Shopee and Lazada, they already have a
right,
base that's big enough, and you
right,
can use that traffic to your
right.
advantage.
Yeah, a lot of people might not know, no, pero I think people just remember Lazada for what it was. People don't really remember Lazada and Zalora being a rocket internet company, like
Yes,
at the beginning.
yes,
And when they were Rocket just really burns through money. Like
yes,
when they built the platform, they had one objective. It wasn't profitability. It was to
yes,
gain critical mass. No,
yes.
and you're right na
Yeah,
because the critical mass was already to a degree. Actually, si Shopee medyo smart, di ba? Parang Jollibee niya si
yeah.
Lazada. Lazada
Uh,
was sort
uh,
of like McDonald's in the Philippines, tas Jollibee siya ni Shopee. So that
yeah.
sort of makes sense.
Yeah, because
Uh,
in this kind of industry, the first mover, uh, you don't get full advantage just because you're first mover. You
right,
have to be able
right,
to put up the required investment to be able to
right.
capitalize on your
Mhm.
position. Otherwise, it will just be taken away from you.
And then I think there might be people that are listening to us that might be looking into their own marketplace partnerships like right now.
Yeah.
Uh, where did you guys discover you made easier headway? Uh, did moving volume on Lazada was moving volume through Lazada easier or was moving volume through Shopee easier? Or do they perform like almost apples to apples?
I think it depends on the product and in the on the industry. But
Mm-hmm.
for our products, we are moving more volumes on
Mm-hmm.
Shopee.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Okay.
and it will also depend on the collaboration with the platform, how
Mm-hmm.
much support you are able to get from them,
Right.
because it's going to be a mutual effort. So you also need their support in
Right.
growing your brand, and that's where the relationship with them becomes very important.
Okay. I'm
So
going to ask a sensitive
yes.
question. No, kung may taga Lazada and Shopee there. I don't know. I don't see the audience list, but uh, who built an easier relationship with you guys? Well, Lazada or Shopee? Who made access to what you needed easier? Did you guys find that easier in
Yes.
Lazada or Shopee?
Actually, they're both the same if you're a walk-in client, but it
Mhm.
just so happened that we knew someone inside Shopee
Oh, see.
that was able to.
Nako, Nico, if I need somebody that knows a guy, I'm gonna go to you.
Yeah, kasi just like in any industry, di ba? It's normally the person who is able to open the door that's able
Right.
to enter.
No, no, I agree. No, for us, so a lot of people might not know this, but Truelogic is also doing experiments on e-commerce.
Yes.
But we're doing it for ourselves. Like we're doing it for ourselves. We have our own marketplaces. It's a brand called Trade. So we've got Coffee Planet and Curated, which is
Yeah.
the captive. It's coffee and artisan. So it's artisanal tea and artisanal coffee. Kasi maarte ko. Because we
Yeah.
want to sell something I'm passionate about, right? We wanted to sell something that we were passionate about. So coffee, tea, great products. Eventually books, like if we can get that going. But we're also realizing as we work with Lazada and Shopee, it sort of matters who you know. No, it
Yes.
matters who you know because they can open doors.
Yeah.
You can start conversations that you wouldn't otherwise if you didn't know somebody.
Yes.
Um,
Yeah.
but we are encountering a challenge in terms of how captive the data is to them. Are you guys encountering the same thing?
Yes. Yeah,
Okay,
because the customer information, customer data is proprietary to them,
right.
and
The,
we
we
don't get
we
access to those.
Yeah, we have clients that specifically veer away from marketplace partnerships, specifically because of that. No, because they do want their customer data captive. They don't want to beg a channel partner for it.
Yes.
They want to know who their customers are.
Yes.
So how do you guys get around that? How do you guys either how do you get around the fact that you have no direct access to that data, or how do you live with
Yeah.
how do you live with the fact that, oh sige, so ito lang yung data na meron tayo sa customers doon.
Yes.
So how do you learn to live with that?
Yeah. I think the shift from offline to e-commerce, or
Mm.
just growing e-commerce in itself, is a long process talaga. It's not
Mhm.
a one-time thing. So normally you start in Lazada and Shopee, and that's when you only realize that, uy, may customer base pala ako online.
Right,
so
right,
so without Lazada and Shopee, you wouldn't realize that you have a demand online,
right,
which will push you to the next step and make you want to capture the customer data that you have.
right, right.
So I think that the challenge is being open and continuous monitoring of what's happening, so that
Right.
if you need to move to a next level or a next step. Because if
Yeah.
you stay put in a particular place, then it will be hindering the growth of the company.
Yeah. And I will say kudos to Lazada and Shopee for opening up the Philippine market. No, like in the 2020 reports that got summarized in May this year, I think the estimates were, I think, around 19 million Filipinos made their first online purchases last year.
Yeah.
Like hindi man lang nag-access ng internet, like they made their first online purchases. To me, like that's amazing. And I cannot dispute it, because before the pandemic, the only people that were doing e-commerce shopping in the house were just my brother and me. So just him and me. And it's not a lot, no. I don't order a lot online. Like pag nag-doorbell si Lazada or si Shopee once a month sa house because I
Mm-mm.
ordered something, that's already a lot. During the lockdown, my God, every day, once to twice a
Yes.
day, the doorbell is ringing. And I go like,
Yes.
who's ordering? And it's the women in the house,
Yeah.
no, and some of them for the first time. So, uh, yeah, it's. I think that's a lot of that's a big statement to, I think, how they impacted Philippine society. So let's jump pandemic wise. Uh, did it take a pandemic for your digital sales to be relevant, or was it already sizable even before the lockdowns?
Uh, our digital sales before the lockdown, before the pandemic, was decent, but not enough for us to really invest in growing it.
Mm,
So we were just monitoring it, no. Pero we didn't think that it would be a serious channel for us.
right, right.
Yeah. So I think the pandemic really pushed the entire digital industry forward, and it's not just for the online sellers,
Yeah.
it's also for the other players as well.
Yeah, I think the estimate, and I can't remember if it's Bain and Company and Facebook,
Yeah.
no, but the estimate was that the pandemic pushed Filipino digital habits forward 3 years, like in
Yes.
terms of adoption, e-commerce, and then totoo, like I saw the general merchandise value sales in the Philippines, and it's like, oh my God, like that's way we used to do, like I
Yeah.
think parang 1.5 or 3.5 billion pesos lang in general merchandise value, and then
Yes.
it went up to a number like 25 or 35. Like it was amazing.
Yes.
So the decision to expand on your digital capabilities, is that a decision that's also being influenced by the pandemic, or hindi? Is this more a long-term play na? Is this more the general roadmap for the strategy for Moringa O2 and Gluta-C?
It's a long-term play for us because it's not just because of the pandemic. There are multiple
Mm,
reasons why. So one of them is the shutdown of ABS-CBN, which
right,
really removed a major traditional media channel.
right.
So parang everyone was forced to shift
Right.
online because
So I'll bring that up, no, because that also came up in a previous conversation. So how did ABS-CBN shutdown impact you guys?
Uh, Actually, we had some TV programs right
Mm,
before the pandemic,
okay.
which actually did well, and we wanted
Mm,
to pursue it more.
uh-huh.
Pero there was no more chance because the network was shut down.
Right. And the ABS-CBN
So
shutdown is not a pandemic effect, right? It's just a
yes,
thing.
so we had to shift the budget to online to be able to use it to push for sales.
Why did you guys not shift it to the competing network instead?
The problem is the market demographics are different. Eh.
Ah, okay.
And our brands, although we are considered mass products, our price points are relatively high compared to our other mass
Right,
product competitors.
right.
So we already knew that the other networks wouldn't be a good fit for our brands.
Okay. Wow. And see, you see, it really says something when you know your customers and all, because you know where to hedge your bets.
Yeah.
And then you know where you know where when something is right and when something is not right. So let's say expanding your digital capabilities, it probably means a mix of captive e-commerce and marketplace partnerships. Are you going to enable that the same way, like beginning with in-house captive capabilities, and then migrate it to partnerships? So is it the same strategy?
Uh, Supposedly, yes, but because we already have a partner who
Hmm.
is Truelogic working with us for our websites, then we've already been trusting Truelogic for our
Right.
websites. So we'll be getting Truelogic's help also for the transition from a brand website to a
But what about the
captive.
fulfillment side of it, no? Kasi
Yeah,
that's the one with
yeah.
more moving
Yeah,
parts.
for the fulfillment side, we also have an existing agency who does the
Hmm.
fulfillment for our Shopee and Lazada.
Right.
So we will most probably apply the same format also because it's been working for us well already.
Hmm.
So we don't want to mess around.
Right. So that's another good example, no? So you guys have a partner that helps you guys out with fulfillment. How did you find that partnership? Like how did that
uh,
partnership get started?
that partnership was started because when we started with Shopee and Lazada, we did the fulfillment ourselves.
Hmm.
So every time the double digit holidays come, we have a order fulfillment problem. Because
Okay.
in Shopee and Lazada, they rate the store according to the delivery time and
Right.
how fast you are able to comply with the pickup schedules.
Hmm.
So we missed a lot of those when the order influx.
Yeah, whenever you've got the double digit sale.
Yeah, whenever we get the double digit sales. So what we tried next as a next step was to onboard with the fulfilled by the third party
Right. Okay.
provider Shopee and Lazada. So they offer these programs as well,
Hmm.
but of course they also have limited capabilities. And eventually, we realized that we aren't maximizing the potential of
Hmm.
our online stores. So that's what triggered us to look for a e-commerce enabling partner
Hmm.
who whom we are using up to today. And
So how did you guys find your e-commerce enabler? And
uh,
then what was the decision making criteria for deciding, okay, so these are the right guys to work
yeah,
with?
we talked with the several top three the top three known
Players.
providers.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, and a friend, well, two friends recommended this particular.
So I know a guy.
So two of my close friends vouched for this provider, so that's why
Wow.
we decided to go for
Right.
them. Yeah.
Talagang there's really something to say for your RJ Ledesma said this the last time, no, your network is your net worth. Eh. There's really something to be said for that adage.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because they also have it goes both ways. Eh.
Mm-hmm.
because they have a name to protect also if
Mm-hmm.
they're referred by someone. But of course, it also makes it easier for them to acquire customers when they do well.
Right.
So it becomes a spiral effect, parang snowball effect.
Right. So okay, so we've established like how you guys decide strategy to go digital, and then we talked about finding a digital provider, finding a fulfillment partner, finding a marketplace channel partner. Now let's talk data because ultimately that guides your decision making, right? And even in my experience, there are still clients that have a hard time threading the story in their data. For you guys, how do you piece your data together so that you get an I would say a pretty accurate view of what your customer's journey is like? Like how do you guys utilize the data to make decision making at Ardent?
We use the data to really understand our customers, where they are present, where they are
Hmm.
spending most of their time,
Right.
and we try to see what they're looking for in that specific platform.
Hmm.
It's not enough to know where they are, because we also need to know why they are there.
Right. Okay. So why
Yeah,
why do you need to know why they're there?
because it will give us the data to it tells us what to do next, basically.
Uh-huh. Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So, for example, if you get if you sell on Shopee and Lazada and read through the reviews, you more or less already know why they are buying in Shopee and Lazada based on the
Okay.
reviews that they are posting.
Right.
So it gives you the next step to take. It gives you which direction you have to go to or go for.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So it also helps you make the budget decisions, budget allocation
Mm-hmm.
decisions. Uh, and yeah, it helps you focus on a particular direction. Kasi
Mm-hmm.
otherwise, you'll be trying out all and you wouldn't know which one
Right.
to really go
No, that's
for.
true. Right. And you need to
Yes.
know where you can
Yeah.
double down and then where you can be a
Yes.
bit more
Yeah.
conservative.
Yeah.
I've always known that you guys pay attention to the sentimentality about your different brands online, no, like how people review Moringa, what people have to say about Lazada. I've seen some of the reviews. I think the early reviews were even on Facebook. No, I've seen reviews of the product. Uh, the reach of the brand on social media, the engagement of the brand on social media, does that matter? Like is that relevant data to you guys?
On some point, yes, but it's not everything.
Right,
So
right.
because quality is different from quantity. So
Yeah, that's true. That's
so
true.
it applies on many other things naman.
Okay.
And
So
the same
so
thing
yeah, so
applies
pero in
in
short, nobody's like panicking in the room na, oh my God, minus 20, like we have
no
20% less likes this month. Wala namang ganon.
no naman. We try to because when we are faced with the data, we just don't look at the surface. We try to
Mhm.
understand what's
Right.
beneath it,
What's causing that?
what's causing it. Yeah.
Right.
So you have to really go down and find out the real reason
Mhm.
before you can come up with a decision to act on.
And when you guys started seeing, let's say your digital data, did it give you any aha moments about your customers that you didn't understand about them when you were back in the day when you were relying mostly on real world inventory movement? Or hindi, it
Yes.
just confirms it lang na sabi ko na ganyan ganyan yung perception sa atin, or sabi ko na nandiyan yung mga customers natin.
It's actually both. It's both confirmatory
Mhm.
and in digital kasi the changes are very fast and you can see
Yeah.
real-time data. So you can see the changes as they occur. So that's the main advantage.
Mhm. So
So
what about hedging your bets? Like hedging your bets for the future. Actually, in the small talk, medyo dun ka nagsimula eh. Like what's
yeah,
your forecast for the pandemic? Pero I'll say, so for the brand, where do you guys hedge your bets? is there going to be an increasing effort in digital? Like, so let's say, kasi ako optimist ako, right? When you asked me earlier, uh, what do I think about the lockdowns and whatnot? I actually think it will loosen up and we'll get to some
Yes.
semblance of normalcy around December, Jan. I'm not, an oracle, or else I do an oracle business.
Yeah.
Pero, uh, like, if things is back to normal, is the amount of effort in digital still going to increase for you guys at Ardent, for Moringa, for Gluta-C?
Yes.
So why? Like, kasi
Uh,
babalik naman ng mga tao sa
yeah.
mga mall, right? Babalik sa grocery, sa Watsons and
Yeah,
whatnot.
kasi pre-pandemic, we already know that there are people who prefer to buy online and there's another
Mhm.
group of people who prefer to buy offline.
Right.
So that won't change. So after the
Uh-huh.
pandemic, things will go back to that. And we're still expecting online to grow
Right.
continuously, even if the rate may not be as fast as what we've experienced in the last 2 years.
Mhm.
But it also gives us it becomes like a diversification strategy wherein we don't put
Yeah.
everything into the
Right,
offline.
right.
Because if another pandemic or related or some force majeure event happens again,
Right. At least
it
this
will
time you
be
have
tough for
multiple
the offline
channels.
channels to really adapt and adjust it.
Mhm. Okay. So what about, the competition playing field? And also, I will actually take us to sort of like the last bit of our conversation before I open it up to the questions. Pero in terms of the playing field, are you finding the offline competition easier than the online competition, or is the online competition easier than the offline competition? Is the level of competition in both dimensions the same?
It's difficult to say whether one is easier than the other, but you need different strategies for each.
Mm-hmm.
So for example, if we go to offline channels, the main competitors are the big brands.
Right,
But if
right.
we go to online channels, there are more competitors, but
Right. Okay. Pero
they're
hindi
ano,
sila, but they're not
the
giants.
big fish is not like a whale.
Right, right. Okay, okay.
Yeah, so
So
parang
here you're competing with whales, and then here you're just competing with more fish.
yeah,
Okay, I never even thought of that. That's a good analogy, no?
yeah. So
Okay,
I
and
think
so the way you guys play online is different from the way you
yes,
guys play the strategy offline.
yes. Because
Okay,
in online it's easier to create like a leverage
yeah.
compared
Kasi
to
I think
offline.
yeah, kasi I think on retail shelves, to a degree, I think a lot of people might not know this, pero you can get boxed out
Yeah,
by your big MNC competitors, di ba? I think
yes.
people that don't sell retail don't always appreciate that, na bakit nung nasa landmark ka dati nakikita mo dun yung product ngayon na yun, and then now I don't know, nasa likod siya ng ibang product.
Yeah. Yeah, in online kasi the possibilities are endless So it's up to
Mhm.
you to try and test out which one
Right.
works for you. So at least if you get boxed out in a particular area, you can go around and find another way to get to your destination.
Right. So what about future directions, like what we expect from Lazada, or what we expect from Moringa and Gluta-C, let's say 2022, 2023, 2024, right? So you guys are clearly moving good amounts of inventory online through your online marketplaces.
Yes.
You do want to delve into your own captive e-commerce capabilities. Uh, but so why not? So I get the diversity, like don't put your eggs in one basket.
Yes.
Uh, pero why not just double down on Lazada? Why not just double down on Shopee?
It's tough kasi in terms of share of business, the online sales is still
Mhm.
not yet taking a
It's not
big
at the
part.
critical
Yeah.
mass. Yeah.
Yeah, it's not the critical mass So at this point, we just want to maximize the availability and distribution.
Hmm.
And we are able to do so if we make our brands and products available in
Right.
all channels that will make sense for us.
Right.
So we normally try and do all channels. Then we slowly trim down if they don't make sense for us.
Right. Your the
That's it.
online marketplaces, do you feel they will continue to be more competitive for small players, or do you feel big players will learn to encroach in online marketplaces like Lazada, like Shopee?
I think the big players will start to encroach because, of course, the Lazada and Shoppees have their P&Ls to protect.
Right.
and,
Right.
and it's only the big players who will be able to really financially support them.
Right. Like I
So,
think like if you take Amazon and some of the Chinese online marketplaces, you
yes.
see ad spaces na eh, 'di ba?
Yeah.
We're not seeing it a lot. We're not seeing it a lot on Lazada and Shopee yet. Like we're just starting to see seller picks and whatnot, or some promoted stores. But in more mature economies, you are starting to see ad real
Yes.
estate appear inside the marketplaces na. Is
Yes.
this how the big players you think will sort of corner those online marketplaces and therefore make it a bit more difficult for the
Yeah.
multitude of fish that are swimming there?
Yeah, I think that's the no nature of the retail industry.
Yeah.
Uh, Even the offline stores started by giving everyone a chance, and then
Mhm.
eventually,
Yeah. So I'll close off our convo before I open the conversations from the rest of the guys, because I'm glad that they're throwing in questions on the chat. So top three closing questions. What's your advice to people that are exploring digital or are just dipping their proverbial toes in the water because they don't know it's for them or not them? How
yeah,
would they know whether it's for them or not them?
yeah. I think the only way you'll know is after you've tried it. But of
Mm-hmm.
course, you don't go all in when you try.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to set aside a realistic budget that you're willing to risk or gamble on.
Mm-hmm.
And from there, you see if it's giving you the returns that you need, at least
Mm-hmm.
to recoup the expenses that you
Right, right. At least break even
yeah
on it.
at least break even. Yeah, because you can't expect it to give you the highest ROI if it's just a
Yeah,
an initial start.
yeah.
But if you're already breaking even, then it's a good sign that you're
Okay.
headed towards the positive side.
About entering online marketplaces, uh, is there a growth hack people can do to make their journey less trial and error? Is there a growth hack that can make their entry into their online marketplace journey easier?
I think the growth hack is really knowing the right partners and being with the right people. Yeah,
Mm-hmm,
working with
mm-hmm.
the right partners will really help a lot because they will open up the doors for you. So working with the right agency gives you the access to their
Right.
connections, especially if you have a good relationship with them.
Yeah. The other thing that I take from the conversation also is that comment you mentioned earlier, right? Like you leave it to the vendor so that you are free to focus on what you are good at or only the things that you can do.
Yes.
Uh, I'll start throwing you the questions that we got. Oh, it's a lot, so I have to go back a bit. Uh, okay. So, first question is which channel or partnership would you suggest to collaborate or start with if a company is just starting out or has a small budget that's allotted for digital partnerships? So good question. I guess they're asking, should we start off doing our own digital marketing? Should we start off doing online marketplace channels? Which one do you invest in first?
I think it will depend on the need.
Mm-hmm.
If you are not yet selling offline and you will have to sell online to generate revenue to keep up with expenses, then you will have to prioritize online
Mm-hmm.
selling, meaning you go to Lazada or Shopee.
Right.
Because
Like kung bottom
otherwise,
funnel na yung goal mo, right?
oh yeah,
If your goal is already
yeah.
move your
But if
inventory.
you have a offline presence already and you want to start working on your online presence, then you can consider starting with the brand awareness side of
Right. The top funnel side of your
the top
marketing.
funnel
That
side
makes
of your
sense.
digital marketing. So it's a case to case basis. Depending
Mhm.
on what your objective for going into digital is.
Okay. The next question is very related to that. It's with a limited budget in digital, but you want to maximize it. What's the best way to utilize? What's the best way to achieve maximum brand awareness as your objective? Like I guess you're saying, what channel would you tap
Yeah.
to get maximum brand awareness, most eyeballs on your
Yeah.
products?
In general, if you want maximum brand awareness, it's going to be Facebook because it's the platform that has the most Filipino users.
Hmm.
Yeah, and it's the most accessible because
I agree. I
the
agree.
telco networks are offering free Facebook data plans.
Yeah.
Every time you add load, you get free certain gigs or certain MBs
Right.
for
Right.
Facebook.
Free Facebook. Yeah. It's
Yeah,
also the way they
so
do it in other
it's the most
countries.
accessible in terms of
Yeah,
reach.
internet, yeah,
Yeah.
penetration alone in
Yeah.
the Philippines, right? Like
Yes.
there are more people that go to Facebook than Google in the Philippines. Although Filipinos Google a lot, like I think we do 35 million, we Google 35 million things a day, I think.
Yes.
But the
Yes.
number of users on Facebook are like 45 million on the conservative estimate and
Yeah.
65 million on the high
Yeah.
estimate, right? That's
Yeah.
huge for a country with only with 100
Yes.
million people.
Yes.
That's a lot of eyeballs.
Yes. Because
Uh,
Facebook Messenger alone has 60, 70 million users.
Yeah, right there you go.
Yeah.
The next question is about endorsers. Oh, which is relevant to you guys because you guys did both there, right? So,
Yes.
are brand endorsers still viable post pandemic, or are influencers the way to go? No, so yeah, I guess they're
Yeah.
talking celebrity
Yeah.
endorsement versus micro influencer.
It will depend on the main objective because the
Mhm.
micro influencers have relatively higher conversion rates,
Right,
while the celebrities will have more reach for brand awareness.
right.
But of course, uh, there is a credibility aspect if you're endorsed by a celebrity
Mhm. Right.
over
I think
a
I'll go back to something Laszlo said, no, because this is actually a genuine curiosity of mine also. I asked him because this happened before the conversation with Chucky Dreyfus, and I asked Laszlo because they do marketing communications. Invictus does
yes,
more marketing communications and does some media buying. So when does he recommend using a micro influencer, and when does he recommend using celebrities? And his answer, I think, really stuck in my head. He says you use your celebrities for hero messaging, and you use your micro influencers to move your inventory. Like that's it. So kapag bottom
yes,
funnel ang target mo, if the goal is conversions or customer acquisitions or more prospects, you use the smaller influencers. And if there's a big message to spread, if it's just maximum coverage, maximum eyeballs, do the celebrity.
yes. We
Oh,
agree with what Laszlo is saying.
yeah,
So we're also doing the same, no? So it really depends on the objective. That's why it's really important to know what your customers are looking for
right.
and what you want your customers to know.
Yeah. If I'm not mistaken, for you guys, the relationship is with the creamers, ba? It's with the creamers, no?
Yes, yeah.
Right, right. So, okay. And then, so there's an entrepreneurial question here. And the entrepreneur question is when starting out a business, what would be your advice on what's a good first step?
Starting out a business, it will depend on your target
Hmm.
consumer profile. If you're targeting the general public or mas broad ang audience or target, you can do Shopee, for example. It's easy to set up, free to create your own account. and then you can move on from there. You slowly grow it.
Right.
You don't have a big overhead.
Mhm. So there's a follow-up question from one of our participants, no, and it's, is there still room for smaller players in the e-commerce world in the Philippines, or has Lazada and Shopee pretty much cornered everything? Do you want to take that? I have an answer to that too, but what's your take on it? Like, ang big
Uh,
players na lang ba ang e-commerce in the Philippines, or is there room for smaller fish?
it really depends on who you're targeting. Kasi if you're
Mhm.
targeting a specific niche and you want to really focus on that particular niche and not go and have no intention of going beyond it,
Mhm.
then it gives you a differentiation.
Right.
Yeah. Pero
So,
if you're going for a general public, then it's going to be tough to direct the
right,
traffic away from the big
right,
players
right.
because it's a parang siya, price war na siya.
Right. So ako, I'll sort of have a related but a tangent answer. No. When I evaluate e-commerce potential for clients, let's say, what I usually take a look at is kapag nag-Google ako ng product, may lumalabas ba na Shopee at saka Lazada listing. When in a Google search, you're not fighting all of Lazada. I think some people have the impression na kapag gusto ko ng traffic na kukunin ko from Lazada, kailangan mas maganda yung website ko than Lazada. It doesn't have to be. For Google, it's page versus page. So hindi mo naman you're not fighting all of Lazada for that specific product. Let's say you do only, I don't know, lampshades, right? Let's say yun lang yung product mo. Then you only have to fight the Lazada lampshade listings, and listing pages are easy to beat. So can you drive the traffic going to your website? My answer would be yes. Uh, that, and there are still brands like there's All Home and All Day. They're an example
Yes.
brand, no? And they move their inventory online, captive, like puro
Yeah.
captive capability lang. And I would not say they're doing poor. They're doing okay. And people sell furniture and groceries on Lazada and Shopee. They're not going under, right? So I still think there's room, but just don't get tempted na you want to win everything in
Yes. You
one
have to
go.
really focus on the
Right,
market that makes sense for you.
right.
Yeah.
And move one kind of inventory. Move your the 20% of products that drive 80% of your revenue. Tas dun lang, lahat ng effort mo, all your
Yeah.
effort, all your budget only
Yeah.
on that. When that does well, leave it alone, move on to the next.
Yes. Yeah.
Uh, okay. Uh,
Yeah. The
wow,
big
okay.
risk
So
of kasi of digital is you're presented all the options, so you're tempted to take on everything
yeah. And
only to
then,
end up
sometimes think
distracted.
about it, 3 months, right? Like three
Yeah.
months, 6 months go by and you still haven't made a decision.
Yes.
And I think it's important that, make a decision quickly, try it out. Like, I think so. I don't gamble, but the advice I give people when they want to go to a casino is, iwan mo wallet mo, iwan mo credit card mo, dalhin mo license mo, and bring, I don't know, 2,000 pesos. That's it. Only what you
Yes.
can afford to lose, right?
Yes.
Same
Yes.
banana if it's your first
Same
time
lang
in
din.
digital,
Yes.
right? Yeah, we're running out of time. I actually still have a couple more questions. I'll ask, like, I think maybe two more, no?
Yeah, sure.
Nico, you said earlier that uh, cancellations can be an issue when selling online because of tight uh, uh, yeah, because cancellations can happen online during double-digit sales. Is
Yes.
it because of tight marketplace rules, or is it because the customers are not patient? What usually causes it?
Actually, it's both because the
Mm-hmm.
marketplaces have tight rules because the consumers demand for them.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So in online selling, consumers normally expect you to ship out their goods the next day.
Yeah. My
So
lordy.
kung
Ideal customer talaga ako
yeah,
kasi I'll wait like a week. Eh.
yeah, if they wait for 2-3 days, then you're lucky with your customer.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, that's
Uh,
why when we when we do our online selling, we try to get the goods to the customer in 2 to 3 days.
Okay. The last one is really more a branding question for you guys. And it's a question of, have you guys, so with the Moringa and Gluta-C brands, have you guys tried the proudly Filipino made angle? Considering that your competition is probably international, like P&G, Unilever, they can't really say, proudly Philippine made, right? So did you
Yes.
guys try to hit the proudly Filipino made angle?
We actually haven't tried it because we don't think that that kind of differentiation will really give you the edge.
Right.
It's because
Or at least not to the market
from
you're talking to.
from our consumer insights, it's not part of the major considerations in selecting personal care products. That's
Right.
why it's really it's really important to understand what matters to your customers, because at the end of the day, if you are able to hit their top 2 or top 3 priorities, they will forget about the rest.
Right. That's true. That's true.
Yeah, so you have to know what their top 2 or top 3 priorities are in
Yeah.
selecting products or brands to support.
Right. Or at least the approach to how you communicate the
Yeah.
brand. Like, is it meaningful to the audience that you're talking to? There's one last question I'll address, or I'll ask. So if we wanted to put up a Lazada store, oh no, actually no, that's not the. This is the more important question. So somebody's asking, what kind of margins should your product have so that being on Lazada or Shopee makes sense and doesn't eat up all of your profits? I guess this is talking about kasi the sales commissions and whatnot. No, so I think good question. So what advice would you give people na kapag ang margin mo below this percent, wag ka na?
Siguro I'll just give them an idea of how much the platforms are charging.
Okay.
And from there, they can do their own
Do their math.
computations. Yeah.
Right.
So if you're on Lazada Mall or Shopee Mall, they charge you extra for being like a parang guaranteed legit store. So you have to be on you have to be a mall seller.
Right.
So the fees are around 5 to 7% on average, depending
Depending on
on
the
the
inventory you
category.
move. Right.
And depending on the category.
Okay.
And then you also have some packaging costs, which will be somewhere around 2%. And then the manpower for the team who will do the fulfillment.
Right. Kasi lahat yun kailangan mong bawiin with the
Oo,
profit.
kasi lahat yun babawiin mo yun.
Right. Okay. And so if your margins are not enough to cover that, then an online marketplace partnership may not be
Yes.
for you. Kasi it's like you working for free, and they make your bottom line essentially.
But
Okay, so
then if
yeah.
the margin is not enough to cover that, I think it's really tough.
Yeah. Hanap ka ng product na mas maganda
because
margin.
because even if you do your own website, you'll really still invest for your own traffic.
Right.
So that's essentially the 5 to 7% you're paying for Shopee and Lazada. You will also be spending around that amount to get your own traffic.
Right, right. And that makes sense. And I wish we had more time. I actually still have a few more questions but we're exceeding time, and I thank everybody for their patience, and Nico for being gracious with yours. I hope everybody here learned something, like take for example how to pick the right partners for your digital marketing, for your website, how to pick the right logistics partners, how to decide whether marketplace partnerships are for you, the amount of effort that goes into your offline and your online. I'm hoping that Nico's experience goes back with you when you execute your work, and has an impact on the daily activities that you guys do, and that these are actionable. Nico, last thoughts before we bid everybody a good afternoon.
Yeah. I think my message to everyone is don't be afraid to try and test it out.
Yeah.
But be smart and manage your risk.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Don't put all your eggs in one basket.
Yes.
Okay. And with that, I will thank you for joining us this afternoon. It was a real pleasure. Time went by like super fast. And I want to thank everybody that joined us here and the people that are joining us on Facebook. For anybody that missed it, this will be up on YouTube and Facebook. And then, Nico, I will talk to you soon. Thank you very much. And for all of you guys, I hope you guys join me for DX12. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you to the Truelogic team for
Oh, it
having
was
me.
my pleasure. It was my pleasure. Okay, cheers,
Okay.
guys.
Cheers. See you.